What is Final Fantasy Type 0, and why is it being announced for Europe and North America just now? The subject of today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Icy and welcome to the Game Report. Final Fantasy Type 0, a game that's been out for the PlayStation Portable since 2011, exclusively for Japan. A title part of the Fabula Nova Crystallis, which is a subseries of Final Fantasy games that all revolve around a common mythos, humans being given predetermined fates by deities through the power of crystals. Final Fantasy Type 0, an incredible title, probably one of the best in the Final Fantasy series, which never saw light in the West, until now. Final Fantasy Type 0's story takes place in Orience, a world divided by 4 countries: the Fiefdom of Rubrum, the Millites Empire, the Lorican Alliance, and the Kingdom of Concordia, who each possess a powerful crystal that serves a unique purpose. 4 nations which once existed under a treaty of peace called the Pax Codex. The plot begins when Cid Alstoon, High Commander of the Millites Empire, which is one of the 4 countries in Orience, declares war on all of the other nations with the goal of seizing their respective crystals. When Rubrum, one of the other nations, is assaulted, a group of young individuals are called in to defend the country from the forces of Millites. The group, named Class 0, is made up of 14 gifted students who all draw magic from their souls and each fight with a different weapon. As this somber story unfolds, the elite class learns more about the ongoing war and the crystal's origins. Unlike traditional Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy Type 0 features a real-time action battle system similar to Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. The player can control 3 out of the 14 available characters in combat, and is able to swap between them at any given time. As mentioned previously, each character wields a specific weapon and can perform special attacks every now and then. Characters fight enemies by locking onto them, and can switch targets between attacks. On top of that, every character has a different summon that they can call in battle called a War God, which is summoned in place of the current character and has its own set of skills. Recently, at this year's E3, well-known company Square Enix had announced that the game is finally planned to be released overseas as a remastered HD version for, surprisingly, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. About 2 weeks ago at PAX Prime, several game journalists got the opportunity to take a look at the first demo of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, along with Hajime Tabata, a video game director of Square, who is most known for working on portable titles such as Crisis Core, and who is currently co-directing the up-and-coming Final Fantasy 15. 6 years ago, Square Enix had envisioned a new project for the Final Fantasy series, which would be a sub-series of games that would all share a single theme: a tale of crystals. The series, titled Fabula Nova Crystallis, is comprised of 3 Final Fantasy titles at conception: Final Fantasy XIII, which has long been released, the upcoming Final Fantasy XV, and Final Fantasy Agito XIII, which has only been available in Japan. Unlike the 2 first games, the last one originally started out as a mobile game. Final Fantasy Agito XIII was firstly unveiled at E3 in 2006. However, in 2008, Agito XIII was re-announced as a PlayStation Portable title due to changes in platform marketing. After a few years of development, and as well as a name change, Final Fantasy Type 0, formerly known as Agito XIII, was finally released on October 27th of 2011. The game received critical acclaim in Japan, obtaining near-perfect scores from popular game magazines such as Famitsu and Dengeki. More importantly, it was the best-selling PSP title of the year, right after Monster Hunter Portable 3rd and Final Fantasy Dissidia. Since today, the game is still considered to be a fantastic title in Japan, and yet it took so much effort for the game to receive a North American and European release. In a previous interview with US Gamer, Hajime Tabata shed some light on the issues regarding Type 0's localization, stating that Square Enix had already been working on a localized version when the game was first released. The work did actually start, it exists to a degree, but at the time when that work was progressing, the market for PSP in North America and Europe had very much gotten smaller. Tabata also noted that when considering a PS Vita version, the number of sales of Vita units in the West was unclear, adding, "These kinds of things were unclear and the company was uncomfortable with going forward on the project without knowing more information about what the expectations were." In other words, a handheld Western release for Type 0 was completely scrapped due to business realities. Fortunately enough, the game's localization finally came to fruition thanks to the continuous outcry of the press and of Operation Suzaku, a fan-based organization that fought for the game's release through personal letters and a petition supported by over 15,000 participants. On June 10th of this year, during press conference day at E3, PlayStation Europe announced that Square Enix would finally be bringing Final Fantasy Type 0 overseas. Fantastic news which made thousands of Final Fantasy fans excited for a game that never made it anywhere outside of Japan. Unfortunately, most of them weren't aware of the fact that it wasn't going to be coming for the PSP or PS Vita consoles. So, a few minutes later, Sony had put up a Twitter update which had disappointed hundreds and hundreds of PS Vita users. Final Fantasy Type 0 HD is coming to PS4, not PS Vita. Apologies for confusion. As you can expect, many internet users let out their frustrations through the PlayStation blog comment section and on Twitter, calling the whole situation a slap to the face. Not an event that Western Sony agents particularly enjoyed. Regardless, now that the game is finally coming to North America and Europe, when is it planned for release? In a recent interview with Kotaku, Tabata said that Final Fantasy Type 0 would be out within the next year. "We really do want the PS4 and Xbox One install base to grow in Japan as well, so we do want to release as quickly as possible." He also mentioned that the game is currently 80% done and that development actually started around mid-2012. On September 17th, Game Informer released an article which soon got pulled away on the same day, stating that Final Fantasy Type 0 HD would be released on March 17th of 2014 in North America, and that it would include a voucher to play the upcoming Final Fantasy 15 demo, which will be playable sometime in 2015. Now, why is Final Fantasy Type 0 being released for the PS4 and Xbox One, and not for the PS3 and Xbox 360? There are two main explanations for this. First of all, since Hajime Tabata has been familiar with the new generation consoles through the co-development of Final Fantasy 15, it only seems logical for him to promote Type 0 as a new-gen game. Secondly, Tabata's never developed games for PS3 nor for the Xbox 360 previously, only portable titles. Furthermore, Square Enix wants to use Type 0 as a way of getting gamers to segue into the new generation, making sure that they'll be prepared for Final Fantasy 15, the next installment in the Final Fantasy franchise. It should be noted that it will be possible to play Type 0 on the PS Vita via PS4 Remote Play, which means you, the player, can enjoy the game from your bed. Will the game be any different from the PSP version? Yes and no. The content of the game will remain entirely identical and no DLCs are planned either. However, small changes will be added in order for the game to be adapted to the new-gen consoles. Apart from the high-definition graphics update and modified controls, the game will offer an additional difficulty mode titled Easy. According to Tabata, many Japanese fans were unfamiliar with Type 0's action-oriented style of combat and found the game to be challenging overall. Some of them weren't even able to reach the ending of the story because of their discouragement over the difficulty. Apart from this new addition, the devs are also removing the multiplayer feature, which was a player experience that unfortunately could not be replicated for the home consoles. And since Square Enix is trying to speed up the game's Western release, Tabata preferred to scrap the multiplayer entirely instead of creating an alternative method. Finally, what are game journalists' first impressions of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD after seeing it at PAX Prime? Well, according to them, the game is fabulously rebuilt with DirectX 11 technology. Seattle Chinese Times writes, "I was ready to throw my wallet down right then and there. It ran so buttery smooth with such visual fidelity that it puts many other titles currently available on New Gen to shame." Editor Marty Silva from IGN said, From the demo I saw, it looked good and ran super smoothly, but don't expect the kind of visuals we saw at the Final Fantasy XV demo back at E3 2013. Peter from GameSpot reported that Type 0 looked really great and that for a PSP game being remastered for HD, the game looked fantastic. Visually speaking, it looks quite good, though that's far from the upcoming PS4 and Xbox One title's most striking quality, from an article by Destructoid. In summary, the game's graphics will definitely look polished and clear on the new consoles, but they won't be considered comparable or superior to Final Fantasy XV's graphics. So what do you think of Final Fantasy Type 0's Western release? Let us know in the comments section, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe to stay tuned for similar content. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Facebook for all sorts of updates. Thank you for watching. Until next time.